there for bringing us up to speed with what is on ground. And allow me return to the studio and introduce my guests who are going to be helping us analyze the 2025 presidential campaign trail ahead of the general election in January next year. On my extreme left is Honorable Paul Omara, MP for Otuke County. He's also a member of the National Resistance Movement Party. Many thanks for making time, Honorable.
Thank you very much.
I'm also joined by Teopista Kiza, the head of programs at the African Youth Development Link. It's an honor to see you again.
Thank you so much, and good morning to our viewers.
Later, we hope to be joined by Harold Kaija, the Deputy Head of Political Affairs at the People's Front for Freedom, for this Kickstarter discussion. With barely a year to the 2026 polls, should be just months, the presidential campaigns are taking shape and the political landscape is beginning to tilt. Marked by passionate rallies, growing competition and rising concerns over security, funding, as well as fairness on the trail. Today, we take a closer look at the positives and the negatives so far, on the impact of police actions, campaign financing challenges, and how the manifestos compare to Uganda's aspirations for the next 5 years. Let me start with what you make of the campaigns so far, but also help me understand, since we just saw what happened during the Obote Memorial, whether the political trajectory of the Uganda People's Congress is in quagmire. Honorable, start it away.
Yeah, thank you very much. I saw the clip for the UPC president talking in Akokoro. As you're aware, Honorable Jimmy Akena, by court, he has not been allowed to participate in these elections. And that came from the backdrop of the turbulent history and misunderstanding within the party leadership of UPC, which has variously led them to courts, and then finally saying Honorable Jimmy could not stand as the UPC party president and therefore cannot participate in 2026 elections. So he went home for the memorial service of his late father, and you saw what he said. Personally, I would have loved to see a UPC presidential candidates coming into play after the 1980. I think ever since that time, UPC sponsored Olara Tunu, who did not vote for himself, and Akena has been looking forward to participate in the elections. But I think the most important thing for UPC is that they need to sit down together and deal the leadership crisis in the party, and they should not take their anger anywhere else. So after that, maybe they would be able to participate in the national elections.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe before we delve into the campaign trail as is, or how you see it, Teopista Kiza, the dilemma that Uganda People's Congress faces plays out quite often in many other political parties, and that is what works for another political party that we know, the one in government, the National Resistance Movement. I think at the end of the day, opposition politicians ought to know when they are playing into the trap or the advantages of the governing party and not. But anyway, at the end of it all, they are politicians. How do you see what's happening?
Yeah, so based on what is happening is that when I look at the opposition political parties, if you look at their manifestos, when you look at their messaging as they campaign, it all speaks to the same things. If you look at them, they speak to the issues of unemployment, the overstaying power, the issues of corruption. So the issues are the same. So you just wonder why they cannot unite as opposition political parties against the NRM. Or otherwise, I'm sure that they will have their votes scattered all over. So we see them fighting each other instead of them uniting against this NRM political party that they say has been in power for over 40 years and has done nothing. So by what we see, I feel like they are also internally disorganized. We know that each one of them has their strength, and if you look at UPC, despite what they are going through, I think it's one of the oldest political parties. It has senior politicians. They have quite a bit of structures. In my village, I still see some very old people that are really committed to the political party. Yeah, okay. The way they, shape their hairstyle and all that. So I am imagining that if UPC, one of the oldest political parties, united with the newer parties, then they would have a stronger force against the national resistance movement. So hopefully at a certain point they can agree, or otherwise the fight is likely to be that hard. Okay,
interesting there. And when the NRM sits, wherever it sits, be it at State House, Kwanzi, Nakasero, wherever the seats of power are stationed, I think you like what is going on. I don't know whether it is deliberately orchestrated by you, the National Resistance Movement, to keep the opposition as disorganized and disunited as it appears. Because you cannot have, for example, the same aspirations, but you don't want to get onto the same vehicle.
Political parties are formed for a purpose. It is just only unfortunate that with the opposition, when they disagree, they split and form new political parties. But I can also tell you that within NRM there has been very many disagreements. But the party tries to really bring people together. For example, many of my colleagues were defeated recently in the primaries, and many have decided to come as independents. But the party formed a committee of eminent persons to reach out to these individuals to say the aspiration of the party is more important than the individuals. And President Museveni has been trying to meet also these individuals with other SEC leaders, to meet these individuals as a group, as individuals too, so that they don't tear the party apart. I don't know whether within the other political opposition parties, they don't have internal mechanisms of resolving issues so that when you disagree, you don't split. And a moment you split, it just brings weaknesses. You're basically feeding from the same population, but in a totally different name. That weakens you.
That is right.
And of course, for NRM, when you're weakened like that, is music to our ears.
Interesting there. Okay.
Yeah.
I know the likes of Semoju Ibrahim Nganda, who have spoken very eloquently about what you said, that political parties are formed and they have their aspirations.
Yes.
Some think that it's time to consolidate ground and ensure that some of these structures that have been long absent are formed, so that maybe the next general election there is a formidable force that is brought in terms of seeking to govern the country. Teopista, how the campaign is being run right now, there's a lot of deja vu moments, especially when it comes to the confrontations between the security forces and some of the candidates. When it comes to supporters themselves, I don't know whether it's going to be worse, because there are those who are saying, and if a tweet that came through earlier today is anything to go by, not earlier today but last evening, one of the NRM honchos in eastern Uganda said that NUP and some other parties are dismayed that the police is not beating them up and denying them coverage by Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC. I don't know whether that thinking is palatable within the political space.
Yeah, so looking at what is happening so far, first of all, I would start it right away from the messages that came through during the nomination. So I saw Robert Kyagulanyi this time around was so bold on encouraging his supporters to be peaceful, because he felt that the moment they become radical and cause violence, then that makes them to be targeted or to be depicted as a violent group of young people. But then the other thing, if you look at what is happening, is that while there is a bit of peace, and then they're allowed to hold their campaigns peacefully, is that NUP is a party whose biggest majority of supporters are young people. And what are the characteristics of young people? Young people come with energy, they come with vibe, they want to express themselves in ways that speak to their youthfulness. So on the other hand, you have the NRM political party that has the bit of the aged kind of people. And you don't expect them to behave the way the young voters behave. What perturbs me is for the police and other actors to expect NUP supporters to behave the same way NRM supporters do. It can't happen. These are young people. They want to express their energy. They want to show their love for their candidate. And I'm sure that for most of them, including Honorable, when you were a youth, if you recall back, there is a way you used to do things that is quite different from how you're doing them now.
That's right.
So police and other actors need to understand that in the first place, that these are youthful supporters and they want to express themselves. So it is better for police to understand that at the back of their mind before they confront these young people. But then also we've seen incidences where they have, diverted them from using the main routes and taken them to far away in the villages, which is okay, because I feel that for every candidate, they should not concentrate in the urban centers. They should even go to the rural areas. But then you've seen the state of the infrastructure, especially the roads in there, that by the time they reach the venue for their rally, they are so dusty and all that. At a certain time,
have a lot of makeup by the time they are ready for their rallies.
At a certain time, I was worried, because these are presidential candidates. So if you've offered them security, then you should also care about their health. That dust could endanger their lives, and so they may not be able to finish off their campaigns really well. So I think going forward, we should be fair enough to ensure that if the incumbent is using formal structured roads, then the same should be offered to all other political candidates. But then the challenge that we face is that if you have a president that has been in power for 40 years plus, is that he has developed systems and structures that are kind of like a patronage system. So he has the advantage that he can still use state resources to his advantage as he campaigns. So the ground is not leveled. It's not leveled. Is that this political party, the NRM, has been in power for quite long. They have developed structures that are from the grassroots. And then the other thing is that they have access to state resources. They can use the security forces and the other things to their advantage, which the opposition political parties do not have. But then the other thing that I see so far, that I've seen so far, looking at their messaging, is that every candidate that goes to an area identifies an issue that is particular to that area. But then what I find is that I think some opposition political parties are promising too much. Like, for example, there is an issue that people in eastern Uganda have been chased away from the wetlands. Where they've been growing rice and all that. So as an opposition political party, you cannot go and say they have chased you from the wetlands for us. But if you do care about the environment and climate change, then that cannot be a good campaign message. It can't be a good campaign message. We know that we are rallying support from voters, but we should not misguide our people all in the name of
looking for votes.
Okay, that's a very important question, and one issue that I think we shall have to debate a little bit further is, and in order for us to understand how political messaging ought to be rolled out. Many of these politicians don't have media teams, for example, or PR teams that are down doing research and helping on the messaging, so that there are no contradictions between policy and populism as you search for the votes. Honorable Omara, the security agencies are required to enforce order, especially in a time like this. But drawing the line between law enforcement and suppression of opposition politics is usually difficult for the Uganda Police Force. The other day, the spokesperson of the Uganda Police Force, Rusoke Kituma, said, "What do you want us to do? This is the head of state. He does not relinquish his position on account of being a presidential flag bearer." So we are dealing with two personas, the head of state and a flag bearer who has to campaign. And no doubt, according to the police spokesperson, the head of state takes precedence.
Yes.
And he was like, so whether you complain, you cry foul, we have nothing to do for you. Wasn't that a bit arrogant on his part?
No. You see, President Museveni is the NRM flag bearer and our presidential candidate. But at the same time, until that date when a new president is sworn in, he remains the president of Uganda with executive authority.
That is right.
And he still needs the security required of a president. So that one, you can't take it away. Maybe it depends on how he said it. I didn't watch his comments on it. But also at the same time, all the presidential candidates deserve to be treated with decency, with respect, and accorded the standards of a presidential candidate. Now, of course, within NRM, there are some extremists who feel, extremist and misguided elements, who feel without the use of force, NRM will never win an election. You don't have to beat opposition. You know, I don't subscribe to that kind of mentality. And also our security forces must, how do I call it, bend backwards and can only use a minimum force where it is required. But if a presidential candidate is moving on the road, why do you block a road? Some of them get overexcited. So for us in NRM, we want everybody to have an equal playing field. Let them reach out to the voters. So far, so good. If you compare this with 2021, nobody has been beaten, nobody has been killed, whatever. So no skirmishes of a bigger magnitude. So I appeal to the security forces outside there, please respect the presidential candidates, allow them to compete. NRM will win massively without anybody being beaten. That is what we believe in. So I really hate to see a presidential candidate being harassed on the road. And then later on they use that as an excuse to say, you see, we could have done better here. Let them go, let them move all over. We are moving and they're also moving. I like also the kind of, how do I call it, response candidate Chagolanyi is receiving wherever he's going, especially around the central here and part of the east. Let people gather and listen to all candidates, and all of them are speaking to their manifestos. This is about alternative views. Nobody should be harassed. So far, as NRM, we are doing very well, and maybe we'll have the opportunity to talk about that.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable. There's somebody out there who might assume he could be taking on the spokesperson's job. Let's take a break. When I return, we shall be delving into Vision 2040 targets, include inclusive growth, digital transformation, and youth empowerment. The manifestos aligning to those specific goals. Then at that point in time, Honorable Omara will tell us exactly how the NRM is rolling its manifesto out. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back from the break. It's the Kickstarter, and we are analyzing the campaigns, that is a presidential campaign so far, as the country gears for the general election in January 2026. How are you feeling the heat of the campaigns? Is everything going according to plan, or is there the peace that you expected? For those that are having a little bit of difficulties, you are urged to be law-abiding, because the exercise of your rights comes alongside obligations that you must meet as a citizen. So when that is done in a fair way, everyone is okay. The forces are fine with your actions, and you will be protected under the law. Allow me to return to the studio. I have with me Honorable Paul Omara, the MP for Otuke County. He's also a member of the Governing National Resistance Movement. I also have a voice of neutrality, Teopista Kiza, the head of programs at Africa Youth Development Link. Like I said, Vision 2040, inclusive growth, digital transformation, youth empowerment. I would be remiss if I do not ask the Honorable what he makes of the other manifestos, but I know you have the NRM to talk about and exactly what the manifesto is. The NRM has already enjoyed the advantages of state communication. The National Development Plan rollout has already been talked about extensively.
Yes.
So much of the initiatives that are embedded in the manifesto have been given prominence at symposia, conferences, and on the media. I do not know what you have to explain right now.
No, I will basically just give some synopsis or just a recap of the manifesto. It stems from what the NRM has been doing for the last 40 years. And there has been a lot of remarkable achievements in different areas. And so we came up with this theme of protecting the gains. Those gains, the things we have achieved over the years, protecting the gains, and then propelling Uganda into a middle higher income status. Now that summarizes what we really want to do. Let's protect the gains, and we put elements that will make Uganda move into a higher income status. And we are going to do those things by doing two things. One is development. Now development encompasses a number of things, which is basically social infrastructure. And social infrastructure, you have the roads, you have electricity, you have water, you have schools, you have health services, you have those components. You even have ICT. Those are development. But you see, development per se does not put money into the people's pockets. So you can have a tarmac road running here, but left and right, you find the population still are living in squalid poverty. Now, the second component that His Excellency wants to do is what we are calling wealth creation. Now, we now need to focus on individual households and make sure that we bring those 38%, including even the rest of the country, into what we call the money economy. So how do you get people to come into the money economy? One, intensive agriculture. We need to modernize agriculture. The way we have been doing things must be different. We must bring science to play. And that's why we are talking about the 4-acre model. Now, if somebody has only 4 hectares, how can that person use the 4 acres to create wealth? And so NRM has a lot of details on household incomes, how we need to get involved in intensive agriculture. We are also looking at creating jobs by making sure we attract investments. NRM now has over, not NRM, Uganda now has over 8,000 factories in Uganda, employing a multitude of people. We want to attract more investments so that more factories are built, more value addition is added, so that we have the youth coming into manufacturing. So manufacturing is a key area which we are looking at. And we're also looking at services like banking, insurance, and other specific service sectors that would bring our people, create jobs for the young people. And also scientific research. If you look at now, we are manufacturing our own buses here. And in the field of medicine, we are now getting our own medicines for the people of Uganda. Internally here, there's a lot of research into the science area. So, and then of course creating markets beyond Uganda. The EAC and AU integration is a key component that we want to do as NRM. So all that brings us to one thing. Let's ensure development is moving on, which I've indicated, but most importantly, wealth creation that goes into household income. But number one, which we must protect, strategic security. Strategic security. The peace that we have attained for the last 40 years is not been out of nothing, but very purposeful focus on making sure Uganda is almost for a long time has remained as an island of peace in East Africa. But peace alone does not mean, it's not equivalent to security. We still have some elements of wrong people that go around stealing people's things. For example, we have PDM. Mama would have bought their pigs and put it there, send some cantankerous fellow steals it at night. So we need to make sure that our police and the local councils are focused on making sure that security of our people are guaranteed. And that's in a broad sense what NRM wants to do. Others, I don't know. Maybe you have my sister here would have.
I wasn't even going to attempt to get you to speak about any other political party because you wouldn't do it justice.
I'm hearing, for example, I'm hearing Honorable Mafavi talking about that he's going to return the production of cotton. He's an accountant, but not an economist. Cotton is no longer viable. Now, Honorable Mafavi, if you are there, cotton is no longer a viable commodity in Uganda.
So, Pista, let's go neutral. Let's go neutral now. So, Pista, I know you're heavily embedded in the youth agenda and how the various manifestos do play or align to the goals and aspirations of Uganda's young population as a driver of economic growth, especially when you look at how productive we can be. I know you will not break down each and every manifesto, but there are those that you have either read thoroughly or you agree with exactly how they intend to make sure that the youth agenda is on top of their priorities.
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Honorable. So I have looked so far at, I think, around 4 manifestos, the NRM, NUP, I've looked at the one for FDC and the bits of ANT. Yes, so while looking at the manifestos, so first of all, I was so much interested in the NRM manifesto on what they are promising this time around, given the period they've been in office. So, and hearing Honorable Amara speak, and what is within their manifesto is that the fact that there is high youth unemployment, and that speaks to the reason as to why you may not have a youth population as part of your supporters. Yeah, high youth unemployment, and where is the problem? Because we don't want to just talk about unemployment without addressing the root causes. I think For the NRM, what has failed us is addressing the root cause of unemployment. If we are to address the youth unemployment, first of all, we need to address the issues with our education system. We've always talked about that, and everyone knows that whatever it is, the graduates that we churn into the job market, there is a mismatch in there. There is a mismatch in there. And for quite long, I think when planning is happening, you've talked about the National Development Plan, there is not much consultation with the private sector, the people, the investors that you're talking about that are creating jobs the other side. You just sit as politicians with at times no experience, but maybe you're good orators, and then you come up with these policies and plans without matching them with the people that are real experienced in these areas. So how I wish the private sector could be brought on board as we are developing a curriculum to address the issues of youth unemployment. And then the other thing is that, Honorable Mara, the census report showed that we have quite a huge number of young people, 42%, who are not in employment, not in education, and not in any training. And most of these people are in the rural areas, and they don't have access or they don't own any factors of production, including land. For some that have inherited land, you know that the education system has taught them to look for clean jobs. So they will sell off the land and buy borders, or they will sell off the land and then look for opportunities in the Middle East. So that too needs to be addressed. So for infrastructure development, I know that infrastructure development facilitates employment. I come from a district where for quite a period of time, that is Kagadi, for quite a period of time we did not have any tarmac road. But thank God, because of the oil in the Bunyoro region, we were able to benefit from that.
You have the best roads in Uganda.
and then we got the oil roads. So I compared the time we did not have roads and right now. I am telling you, people are now engaged in production because they know that vehicles will come from as far as Rwanda to buy their cassava. So how I wish that government would focus on infrastructure development, because now you will enable people to produce, because they are sure that when they produce, they will have market for their produce. But I think for the infrastructure is we are still really low. Where Chagulanya has been campaigning, it has showed that you have focused on the main roads, and when it comes to the rural areas, those roads are bad, they're impassable, so they cannot facilitate people transporting their produce to the nearby market areas. And then also, you've talked about how you intend to do wealth creation. I think you have tried this. You have, the government has tried to bring in investors, and we have a lot of industrial parks here. But now the challenge is that the working conditions of the people in there is really appalling. The salary that is paid to the young people cannot facilitate them to afford the standard of living in the country. So that is why most of them would opt to go work in the Middle East than work in those industries and factories. We interact a lot with the Ministry of Gender. So we know that the Ministry of Gender is supposed to do some inspection to look at the standards and all that. But then they say they don't have a good budget for doing that. So the standards in those factories that you're creating, and also the pay is really very low. It cannot afford young people a good standard of living. And then the other thing that I could talk about with regard to the other political parties is that what I have seen in the manifestos of the other political parties is they have quite a good analysis of Uganda's problem, the issues. They've done that quite well. Definitely the NRM cannot do that. They cannot analyze Uganda's problem quite well, because now they're
a little bit comfortable.
They would be shooting themselves in the foot. So they have quite a good analysis of Uganda's problem. But now, for all the manifestos, where I have the challenge is the how. The how is not addressed quite well. If you say that you want to create employment opportunities, tell us how you're going to create those employment opportunities. Yes, I have seen that some of them have even put statistics and figures that we will create like 10 million jobs every year, but some of those targets are quite so high.
Quite so high. That is Manifesto Priority 5 of the National Unity Platform, creating 10 million new jobs by 2032, leveraging tourism 25.3%, manufacturing 60%, sports, as well as the creative economy. You have given a damning assessment of their ability to come through on that.
Yeah, so I feel that that target is ambitious, quite ambitious, but I'll give them a benefit of doubt. They've not been in government. Maybe when they test it out, then they will be able to set quite an achievable target. But then the other thing that I can speak to that you've spoken about that is in the NUP manifesto is the sports and the creative arts industry. I think that is an industry that has potential for creating opportunities for the many young people. You've talked about one of our champions who
Jacob
is so for quite long I think that is the sector that had been neglected by government, but this time around in the budget they tried to put up some resources to enhance that, but I still feel that a lot needs to be done. Then the other thing that I would speak to is the healthcare in this country.
Okay, very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. If you look at the healthcare system, let me just use just one example that happened this week. My sister was sick and she had an issue and needed to do some tests and scans. So she goes to a general hospital in the district. They do one scan, then the machine gets spoiled. And then they'd be like, go back home, we have to get someone from Hoima to come to Kagadi to repair the machine. The technician comes, repairs the machine, 2 days, 3 days, it still cannot work. Yeah? So because those of us that are, you know, are working, you have some money, you can ferry your relative to come and access the services here. But how about the many Ugandans who cannot afford?
And depend entirely on the ability of government to better the equipment, but also establish or rather give the manpower needed to operate these machines. Many thanks. Honorable, because of time, you won't respond entirely, but I would love that you wrap up. So that we can be able to move. We have updates coming through from Mbale as well as some other candidates' trails.
I just want to comment on one or two things that she's mentioned. Our education system, it's true, created a lot of white-collar jobs, but the government of Uganda are now focusing on.
Honorable, I'm afraid I'm going to have to hold you in your tracks there and allow you ensure that you consolidate that train of thought. And let us just go to Daniel Kibate, who is standing by in Mbale to give us an update on the campaign trail of the candidate with which he is embedded, and then we shall return and wrap this conversation up. Good morning, Daniel Kibate. Where is my man? I see.
My brother Chris Genye, and of course viewers of Morning at NTV. Like you rightly put it, I'm Daniel Kibete. We're coming to you live from Mbale City. Mbale City is in Bugisu sub-region, that is in eastern Uganda, and that particular shot that you are seeing there is a shot of coffee, because this particular place is known for the massive production of coffee in this country. It has helped a lot, contributed a lot to the development of this area, but also the development of Uganda. Of course, the only surviving cooperative in this country is Bugisu Cooperative Union. Of course, that is led by Nathan and Alamafabi, and they basically deal in coffee produce, selling of coffee, and you know it's helped improve the livelihoods of farmers in this particular place. Where I'm standing right now is a landmark of Mbale, really, a specific roundabout, because that particular route that is on my right, that is Republican Street, a very famous street by the way in Mbale. And then on my left, this other side is the road that leads you to Kampala, Iganga, and of course this particular road here. And then on just front of me, this particular road goes to Kumi. Kumi and other parts of eastern Uganda. Now we are here because the FDC presidential candidate, that is Nathan Nandala-Mafabi, has brought his campaigns to this particular place, eastern Uganda, on this 15th day of presidential campaigns, and he will specifically be going to Sebei sub-region, and today he will be starting with Buko and then Kwen. From Mbale to Buko is about 2 hours drive really, and then from here to Kwen, because you begin from Kapchorwa, then you go to Kwen and then Buko. Of course, we are expecting him to talk a lot about what is aligned to his manifesto, issues to do with poverty eradication, issues to do with fixing the economy, but there are certain issues or specific issues that affect the people of Buko and Kwen. Key among them is illiteracy level. Education in Buko is quite embarrassing, if I may put it that way. It is so frustrating because every year at least, whenever national exams results are released, then Buko, Kwen and Kapchorwa normally come in the last part. They normally tail, and so that means that there's a big challenge in that particular area. So we would expect him as well to talk about the education system in Buko and how it's going to improve that particular education sector in that particular region. The other big issue that affects the people of Sebei sub-region, particularly Kwen and Buko, is the issue of border conflicts between that is Uganda Wildlife Authority and of course the communities. For about 3 or so decades since Mount Elgon was gazetted as a national park way back in the 90s, there's always been conflicts between communities and Uganda Wildlife Authority. So the land is really small and locals there cannot find enough land to graze their animals. What they do is that they take the cattle to the gazetted place, to the park, and always they are in conflicts with the rangers who normally shoot at them or even arrest or give them heavy fines. It is an issue that even the President Museveni has talked about so many times, but up to now there's no solution to it. So probably Nandala will be speaking a lot to that. And then the other issue is the issue of cattle compensation. Sebei sub-region is one of the areas in this country that was affected by the issues of cattle rustling. The neighboring communities from Western Kenya, a community called Pokot, it's part of the Kalenjin, and surprisingly they are sisters and brothers to the Sabine community because they fall under the same ethnic group of the Kalenjin. But a long time ago, about 3 decades or 2 decades, there was a lot of cattle rustling, of course, plus the Karamoja. They would cross over to Sebei and then, steal or walk away with cattle plus kill people, forcing some people to flee even to Kenya. But up to now, the government has remained adamant on what strategy or what timing they're going to consider compensating those people who are greatly affected. I've been lucky enough to follow a number of President Museveni's speeches every time he comes to Sebei sub-region, and he's always been talking about his plan to compensate the people, just like he's already done with other parts of this country, the Lango and Acholi. I'm told, it is for a fact that government allocated some 200 billion towards that particular cattle compensation in northern Uganda. Some time back, I think it was in 2022, but up to now there's no plan that has been issued for Sebei sub-region, but he's always been talking about compensating those people. Probably now is the time for Nandala-Mafabi to take advantage of that and probably promise the people on what his plan looks like, if he's got the final plan to compensate these people, and probably if he just gets to do that, then he could stand high chances of getting more votes in that particular place. Maybe while winding up, the other big issue is about the issue of athletics and sports, the entire sports sector in Sebei sub-region. Sebei is the biggest producer of finest athletes in this world. Talk about Joshua Cheptegei, talk about Jacob Kiplimo, talk about Moses Kipsiro, the Stephen Kiprotich, and all the other world champions. They come from Sebei, but apart from the Teriet High Altitude Training Center, there's no other thing that the government has done to appreciate the efforts of these gentlemen and ladies of this country, the patriots of this country who have flown the Ugandan flag high on the international scene. Perhaps Nandala could interest himself in talking about how he is going to improve the sports sector or sports sector in Sebei sub-region. Is he maybe going to talk about maybe setting up more training facilities other than the Teriet High Altitude Training Center, because that is in Kapchorwa, and yet we have athletes coming from everywhere. We have athletes coming from Buko, we have athletes coming from Kwen, and there's a likelihood that these people may want training facilities of their own as well, because they normally face challenges traveling from Bukwa to Kapchorwa just to train. So what is his plan for that? We expect a lot, of course, from him, and then the other issues really that he's been talking about could pop up or must come up. The issue of taking about 200 million to villages. He said he's going to start what is called village development model. Remember, the current government, NRM, is running the parish development model. People are getting money at the parish level, but Nandal says to empower these small business people or small farmers, you have to bring them from down. You have to give them 1 million each. And so he says his target is to go down to the villages and make everybody there, or the small business people, the small farmers, empower them or support them financially with startup capitals of 1 million shillings each per year. So those are some of the issues that are really going to come up, plus of course the talk of supporting the graduates, because he says every graduate that gets out of campus and doesn't get a job immediately, he will be given at least 1 million to start life with. So many issues really, but those are some of the key issues that we expect him to talk about, even as he takes his tour to Sebei sub-region, where he will be, by the way, he'll be in Bukwa today and Kwen, and then tomorrow he'll be in Kapchorwa in some parts of Bugisu sub-region. He will be here for 4 days rather, because this is his home, after winding up his campaigns, of course, in Lango sub-region. Back to you, Chris again.
Daniel Kibet there for bringing us up to speed with Nathan Nandala Mafabi's next stop, which is going to be his hometown in home city rather. Hometown should be somewhere near Bududa. Okay, Daniel Kibet is part of the Uganda Bold Voice 2026 election coverage team that is on ground to bring us up to speed with what's happening on a daily basis. Incredible job you guys are doing, and of course many thanks. I would love to return to the studio and allow my panelists to wrap this conversation up. Let me begin with Honorable Omara, who was due to respond briefly, but also give us his closing remarks in as far as his overview of the 2026 general election as it comes up is concerned.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was responding to her submission about the youth unemployment and our education system, which has flaws. And I wanted to say that yes, it's true, our education system has trained many of our young people for white-collar jobs instead of working with their hands. Yeah. So the government of Uganda now, through Ministry of Education, is focusing so much now on TVETs, these technical vocational training institutes, where they can learn a lot of skills, and there's a lot of money going there now. Those institutes are being created across the country. We hope that would help. On the issue of infrastructure, road infrastructure is very expensive to build. And if you look at our budget, we have been borrowing a lot of money. Our revenue collections is targeted at 36 trillion. And yet now our debt burden is over 100 trillion. Now, so you can't keep on borrowing to build infrastructure. The good news is by 2026, our oil revenues will start flowing. Which will give us $2 billion every year, and that will help us to build infrastructure. Let me close by saying this, that this election has started on very well. All presidential candidates are outside there campaigning. So I'm told some have failed to go, and they were asking either Electoral Commission or government to give them money. So I don't know why we even allow such candidates to be nominated. But the NRM candidate is doing very well. It looks to me like it's a two-horses race between President Museveni and Honorable Chagulanyi. What I can say is that the NRM candidate is doing very well. Is being received victoriously across the country. And what, again, I want to emphasize is security forces, please don't take away our thunder. You know, we want to win this thing in a very peaceful manner and massively. So we don't want somebody to say, you know, they won because our candidates were beaten. Please don't beat any candidate. Don't stop any candidate. Let everybody galvanize for their votes. But as NRM, we know that our candidate is strong, our manifesto is solid, and the people of Uganda know where we want to take them. So I submit.
Okay, Mr. Kiza, your wrap on this.
Yeah, so what I want to wrap up with is that
if you look at what is happening within the discourse, the discussions from people, is that you have quite a lot of Ugandans that are apathetic, that feel that elections would not give them the desired, impact. So going forward, what I feel needs to be done, and something that is being dodged, is that we need to get back and have dialogue on transition. That's my fear. That's the fear of many Ugandans out there. The transition question is a very big issue, because I feel going forward, this country needs a reset. Yeah, he talks of we don't have enough resources for our infrastructure, but if you look at what we are spending on the huge parliament, the local governments that we create each and every day, those resources would have helped us to, fund some of our...
Interrupting her. A transition, this is now an opportunity for a transition. It can happen. Uganda's have
Technically, it can happen. No doubt about it. All right.
That happens.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kiza, Head of Programs at the African Youth Development Link, for the insights as well as perspectives, and many thanks to you too. Honorable Paul Omara, MP for Tuke County, as well as a member of the National Resistance Movement. It's been a pleasure having your company on Morning at NTV. We're going to take a break, and when we return, we shall be bringing you up to speed with the start of the Uganda Certificate of Education exam today. It's starting amid a lot of uncertainty. Arts teachers are still on industrial action and say they will not appear anywhere to supervise or invigilate. Officials at the Uganda National Examinations Board are urging all teachers across the country to avail themselves so that the candidates can write their exams in peace and tranquility. When we return, all that will be up. Do stay with us.